Welcome back to my YouTube channel, and this one is going to be freaking wild. We're not talking about nothing in Marvel, we're not talking about DC. We're going to Image Comics for this one. Talking today about Luther Strode. Most of you do not know that name, but you will. I promise you, you will. And you will not forget about it because he is a freaking boss. So please like and subscribe to my channel and watch this video till the end for more. We start off our story with bullet holes and blood. Moving forward, I could just let you know that this is going to be a constant in this story. It's going to have a lot of blood. If you have watched Lucy, yeah, this story is kind of like that. When Lucy could use 100% of her mind, Luther can use 100% of his body. And that is what we learn in the next panel, because he used his body to massacre a whole lot of people who deserve to be killed. And he did it in a spectacular fashion. And he did all that because of one simple book called the Hercules Method. This is when we go back a few weeks to see that Luther was actually a scrawny kid. He was tall, yes, he was handsome, but he was weak. Him and his best friend Petey decided to get this book to help them stand up to their bullies. We see Luther getting back to his apartment with his mother. She was a beautiful and caring woman, like any other superhero mother is. But you should know already that never works out, because her son found a book. Luther was a nice young kid, but he didn't feel comfortable in his own skin. He felt he could look better, and with this book, he looked to achieve this. The Hercules Method was a simple book that directed you on how to focus your body and change your life. The directions were simple: exercise and focus your body and your mind on one simple goal. And he did. He focused his body and his mind, but the changes were not apparent, not yet. In a prison somewhere around the world, there were men bound in chains, not able to move, only able to use their mouth. These were considerably dangerous men, and we see one of them loosening one of his teeth and shooting from his lips like a bullet, piercing the head of a helper who was bringing him his food. This is when we're introduced to the librarian, a very dangerous man that wasn't impressed by this show of skill, because he apparently could do way better with way less. Back with Luther though, we see him now gaining the appetite. He is eating constantly, and his mother notices this and calls him out on it. She goes forward to grab a plate, but she slips, and Luther catches this because for some reason he's able to see the tiniest twitch in her body. Knowing the plate was going to drop, he moves swiftly across the room and catches it a split second later from being shattered. He's amazed, and so is his mother. He was shocked. This has never happened before. When suddenly they both heard bang, bang, bang on the door. His mother instantly afraid. This is when we learn that his mother had apparently been traumatized with some event that we will find out about. And Luther made it clear to Pete, "Don't bang on my door, bro." Like a good son, he offered to skip school and protect his mother, but his mother was not going to allow that happen. Go to school. You need to learn. And so he went to school. But this time, he was different, and we will see how. Back in school though, he sees the love of his life, the absolutely crazy Pietra, but more on her later, because at this moment he had to have a conversation. So Pete helped him, pushing him in her way, causing him to say hi. But as usual, people can never allow you be great, because a bully was watching all this take place, making fun of Luther. But Pietra was not impressed, actually going further and insulting the bully, knowing full well that this may not come out the right way for Luther. Doing this, she kissed Luther on the lips, gently, especially when they have never had a conversation before. Luther was shocked, but he was entranced. This was the girl of his dreams. This was the best day of his life. No one could ruin this day, but sadly for him, the next class was PE, and his friend was taking the blunt of all the hits from all the bullies. Checking on his friend, he forgot right now he had a target on his back. The bully from earlier, using all of his strength, tossed the dodgeball directly at Luther's head. Without even looking like some type of spider sense, he caught it and proceeds to toss it back. But before he does, he notices that with every flicker of the bully's muscle, he sees the way the bully is going to dodge. And with that, he tosses it in a way he could not, directly at his face. And he spewed like a freaking fountain. Back with the librarian though, we see a big ship holding a big container and inside a river of blood. The librarian had apparently hitched a ride on this freighter ship, and for some reason he was killing everybody, and I mean everybody, ripping the door off his hinges, and for some reason he could only see right through the human body. So right now this man was just a meat bag, literal meat bag. The librarian cleaned off his hand, and in a calm voice he said, "Don't start begging now. You have survived for 3 days." The man said, "Screw you." And the librarian smiled. "Yes, that's it. Now come and die." After gym class, we see Luther in the locker room, waiting because he was not going to run away from a bully. Not this time, and not ever, but Pete was clearly scared. And at that moment, the bully came in with his group. He was looking for vengeance for Luther messing up his nose. And Luther tried to apologize, but he wasn't hearing it. He got punched Luther. Oomph. And Luther felt it, but it wasn't that tough. And he made it clear that he needs to stop now before he hurts him. But the bully wasn't listening. And at that moment, Luther could see right through this bully. He was a meatbag as well. Luther was tired of being picked on, and he clenched his fist. And with one punch, he took out and shattered this guy's jaw, taking a couple of teeth with it. All the bullies were shocked. Half of them threw up, because this was the start of an adventure, of a new superhero, so to speak. Please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. I promise you there's more stories to tell. Luther Strode is awesome. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. And today we're continuing our story on Luther Strode, a young kid whose life turns upside down because he learned something he wasn't supposed to. And picking up from where we left off at the last video, he returns back to school after beating the bully that has been picking on him and his friends. Understandably, he was on edge. He just beat the bully, the head of the school. He was expecting some people to pull up on him. Like I said, understandably, but his friend PT didn't get the memo. He thought it would be funny to sneak up on his friend and surprise him. It didn't end well, and he was pissed off. But at the same time, you should understand, because of your ass, I beat up a bully and now he's aiming for me. He just wanted to lay low and go for classes, but that was impossible because the whole school heard that he beat up a bully and they were looking at him. Everyone was looking at him. It was the new it kid in school, and he didn't want to be the it kid in school. Unsurprisingly, the bully pulled up with his friends, and for some reason he couldn't talk. Understandably, because Luther shattered his jaw. So now his friends had to translate for him, and Pete found this funny. He wasn't supposed to find this funny, because even if Luther was strong, he wasn't. He could still get his ass beat. But the thing is, Luther was never going to let that happen. Pete was his friend, and at that moment, a big ocean of rage came flooding out. Grabbing onto the bully's hand, he pressed it hard, shattering in it, and when the bully dropped to his knees, using his other hand, he took his head. At that moment, all he could see was red. He was on kill mode, seeing only the muscle of people around him. He butchered everyone, and I mean everyone. He tore Pete in half, punched people's heads off their shoulders. He was a killer. But all of that was just happening in his head. Got you. He just told the police to walk away, knowing full well that they couldn't take him right now. They decided to let it go. But Pete was enjoying this. But we see that while Pete was having the time of his life, Luther wasn't. He's not a man of violence. He never was. He has met a lot of men of violence, so he decided to be different. And at that moment, she came through. This sick, psycho, hot chick that Luther for some reason had the hots for. Even if she was very suspicious. I mean, she never even knew he existed 2 days ago. But now, all of a sudden, she had the hots for him, cracking jokes, giving him signals to kiss her. But Luther was a nerd. He couldn't understand the signals, so she had to pull him in and kiss him herself. He was having the time of his life. But while he was enjoying his life, this bully, he was going through it because he was having his own daydreaming session, dreaming about beating the crap out of Luther over and over again in front of a crowd. He was angry, but suddenly he felt a drop on his face. Blood. A few questions came to mind. Am I bleeding? And where is this blood coming from? Only to look up and see that his roof is soaked in it. Someone was bleeding out above him, and he called his father and his mother with no response. He had to check it himself, running upstairs in full force, only to discover a massacre. All the members of his family were dead, and standing in the middle was the librarian, making jokes about wearing his mother's apron. He was terrified because he knew he was going to be next. And so he took off, running with such speed the librarian had to chase him down and catch him. But this librarian was fast, punching through the wall and tossing him down the steps. He walked down slowly, and the bully thought he could defend himself with his barbell. But the librarian just caught it and bent it, smiling. This is not how you work out. All you need is your hands. Returning back to Luther, while this guy was getting massacred and beat down, Luther was training because that book he picked up had opened his mind. He was one with his body. He was amazing, really spectacular. And by God, he didn't know it yet. But someone was watching him, the love of his life, apparently. She had snuck into his house and he was shocked. Why is this babe, who for some reason I like, sneaking into my apartment? She made it clear that she was just here to hang out, which is very suspicious, but like I said, he liked her, so he got dressed. And she made an X-rated joke, but that just made me know that she's a little bit crazy. She explained that she just came to visit because obviously he was suspended after the fight, and she just wanted to hang out. But Luther just wanted to know how and why did you come here? And swiftly she changed the topic, trying to seduce him. And when Pete found out, he was having the time of his life. Pete is one of those guys that live their life through the experiences of their friends. So he was happy for Luther, but Luther was distracted because at that moment, the store they were in was about to get robbed, and Luther was the only hero here to stop this. The trigger was watching one of the robbers take advantage of another female, and Luther was not going to watch that happen. Never again. So he launched a missile, which was a milk. He took the robber right off his feet and slammed him into the wall. And Luther said one line, "Walk away." But obviously, they were not going to walk away because they had guns. So they shot, and Luther dodged every single bullet, grabbing some candy and tossing it with such precision. They got stuck in the barrel of the gun, and they were shocked. How did he do that? But nah, Luther was just way too fast, grabbing a hold of both of these robbers and slamming them against each other. He knocked them out swiftly. In a microsecond, we see that Luther, for some reason, had combat sense. Nobody's meant to do this, no regular kid. The owner of this store called him a hero, but Pete made it clear that he's not a hero. He's a superhero. This is just a start. I promise you the next video will blow your mind. Like and subscribe and share. God bless you. Bye. Welcome back to my YouTube channel, and this time viewer discretion is extremely advised because this video gets freaking gory, violent, and extremely awesome. So if you're underage, please don't watch this video. But if you are of age, enjoy. My name is Ifeanyi. Welcome back to the Gemini Plug. Please like, subscribe, and share. We continue today's video where we left off in the last one. Luther and his best friend Pete had apparently decided, or rather Pete had decided, that Luther had to become a superhero. I mean, his abilities were too awesome to just deny and go back to living regular lives. So Pete got some boots and some jackets, some gloves for no fingerprints, and a very spooky Halloween mask. But Luther, as soon as he put it on, felt like a fraud. This was not what he was meant to be doing with his life. He wasn't a superhero, he just read a book. And now, Pete, looking at his best friend, knew This was what Luther was built for. Both of them had two different opinions about this whole situation, and Luther felt like a freak, assuring Pete that this is not what he wanted to do with his life. He doesn't have superpowers, and just to test that he does, Pete lobbed a book with all of his strength directly at Luther's head, and Luther caught it without even turning around. Luther was visibly furious, but Pete knew at this second that you, my friend, are meant to be great. You're a superhero, protector of the weak. Told him to think for a second. Don't you think there's someone out there who the police can handle that you can? And Luther knew at that moment Pete was right. Because when he was younger, he couldn't do anything while he watched his mother being abused by his father. But this time around, he really can do something. So he made up his mind to at least try. Meaning he had to sneak out of the house. But it wasn't easy because his mom was extra vigilant tonight. He made it clear that he was just going to the library, but she thought he wanted to go see Pietra. And he made it clear that nah, he wasn't. Asking how did she even know about Pietra, but she's his mother. She could tell when another person is in their home. It was also very clear that she wasn't comfortable with Luther out of the house. She felt safer with him around, especially this period because his father was out of prison and his father was an abuser, so he was definitely going to track his mother down. But Luther assured her that if he did come, he was going to suffer. But for now, Luther had to practice being a hero, and he was good at scaling rooftops. But when it came to it, he was bored. Being a hero is nothing like the comics. Crime doesn't just appear. Until he saw a guy and his girlfriend arguing, and at that moment it got violent quick, and Luther had to step in, asking the guy not to touch the girl. And he wasn't listening. He told Luther to fuck off. And Luther asked him again, don't touch the girl, ripping off the guy's shirt, which was extremely funny because we all know Luther was trying to toss the guy, but he didn't know his own strength. So the guy was forced to attack Luther, but Luther was just too quick, stepping out of the way and tossing him to the floor. The moment where he was about to give his heroic speech, he felt the bag smacking against his head. Shorty was defending her man that was literally about to put a beating on her. Luther realized at this moment, screw this, and he left, going to see the one person that could always make him smile. But for some reason, she wasn't coming to the window, so he had to toss a bigger rock. He tried to call her, but she doesn't pick up her phone. And she made it clear that she doesn't use her phone for nothing but music, asking if he could come up, explaining that his night was not the best, but before he could, they were interrupted by someone in her house, so she was forced to close the window. While his night was going terrible, we see the two criminals who he beat up, planning at the back of a cop car how they were going to murder Luther in his own house. And it was so weird because the cops could hear everything they were saying, and they made it clear they didn't care. But just before anything could happen, they heard a thunk. Something had landed on the roof of their vehicle, but they didn't have much time to respond because right that second, both of the cops died because one got his head smashed and the other got his head completely ripped off. Gruesome and bloody like I promised. Watching the cops die in such a spectacular fashion, the criminals knew at this second that they were next, and they weren't eager to die, but they did spectacularly. And Luther found this out the next day while eating spaghetti, so he lost his appetite quick, only to realize that for some reason the people that have had animosity towards him have suddenly died. The bully and his family died. Now these criminals dead. Something is clearly wrong. But before he could explore it, Pietra came and sat down with them. She had sunshades on, which was weird because they were indoors, and her hand was clearly hurting and bruised. But Luther noticed all of this in an instant because not only does he have powers now, his mother did the exact same thing to cover up her abuse. Pietra decided to walk off. She didn't like being questioned, and Luther, later that night, decided to meet this boyfriend again. because he put his hands on women, and Luther doesn't like men that put their hands on women. Breaking into his house, he knew he had a gun, but Luther wasn't scared, even after the gun was aimed at his head. He just took it and dismantled it in an instant and told him, "Hit me right now." The big gangster, feeling confident, decided to hit Luther, but there was no point. He was like steel, and Luther said, "Hit me harder." So the gangster went for Luther's face, but there was no difference. It was like hitting a brick wall. His hand cracked. Luther smiled. "Are you done? Good. Now it's my turn." Grabbed the guy's hand and shattered it in an instant, backhanding him directly to the floor. Because at this moment, he was taking out his anger. He doesn't like women beaters. So, he was going to show you how it felt to be powerless, beating the absolute crap out of this wannabe gangster, asking him a simple question: how does it feel to be powerless? And ragdolling him around his apartment, his body landing at the foot of his door, because someone opened it. Standing before the door was the librarian. Yes, the butcher of men was here, standing before Luther. You know the next video is going to be crazy, so stick with us. We drop videos every day. Join the family. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Finally, we have 1,000 subscribers. So congratulations to us, congratulations to me, and congratulations to the comics I narrate, because without them, this channel would not exist. So thank you. Viewer discretion is extremely advised in this video, because this is the bloodiest issue we are going to talk about. So get your mind right, get your food right. Okay, let's go. We pick up our story with Luther having beaten up a gangster for manhandling his girlfriend, and suddenly being interrupted by a gentleman called the librarian. If you don't know about the librarian, go watch my other videos. But just know, he's a man killer. I mean, he's a butcher of men. Literally, that's all he does. And in this moment, he's impressed. But he wants Luther to finish the job. And Luther was confused. Who are you? The librarian wasn't taking no for an answer. He straight up kicked the body towards Luther, and Luther caught it. This was a whole ass human, and they were using him to play soccer. But Luther knew at that moment that he was done. But the librarian didn't give a fuck. He attacked Luther straight up. With so much force, he crashed through the building into another room. Luther had to scream, "Jesus Christ." The librarian laughed. "Yes, I am way more than a bully or a drug dealer thug." And at that moment, Luther realized that it was him that was killing everyone in his life who had caused him harm, telling him, "You're welcome." But Luther said, "Welcome? I never wanted them dead." Then the librarian corrected him that, "Of course you did. There's only one reason you have gained this talent, because you have an innate ability to kill." Luther, the lovable giant, didn't want to hear all of that, so he clenched his fist and attacked the librarian. But this librarian was a skilled fighter. Even before he could land, he gained the upper hand, flipping Luther in the middle of the air and kicking him down with his heel, causing the floor to break apart, and then he landed on the floor below. The librarian clearly wanted to play some more, but for now, he was done, and Luther had to rest. So he knocked Luther out with one punch. But he wasn't done with Luther. No, he had a plan. This is when we find out that that gangster apparently had some friends, and they were not happy to see him in the hospital. Even when the nurse made it clear that they needed space for him to rest, they were not taking no for an answer, threatening the doctors and nurses until they left. And when they did, they asked, "Who did this to you?" But their friend couldn't answer because Luther never showed his face, which is why the librarian thought it best to call and inform them that Luther was the person who did all of this, knowing full well that gangsters would attack Luther's family without a second thought. Luther had a choice to make, but he didn't know that because right now he was knocked out. And when he finally came to, he was in a place he could not recognize, or at least he thought he could not recognize. This place was his house. his original house, with his deadbeat father knocked out and bleeding in the corner. This is when we learned that the librarian was not only a good fighter, but he was smart as well, because he was playing some dangerous mind games. He was the person who gave Luther the book in the first place. So Luther asked him a question. Why did you give me the book? He said, wrong question. So Luther rephrased, why did you pick me? And he smiled, saying, let me tell you a story of the birth of murder. Murder is our first instinct, our only instinct, here to make us strong. In essence, murder is good. He goes on to explain throughout time, from Cain and Abel, murder was just there to allow human beings break their limitation, gain power, gain strength, teaching them how to survive, how to fight, how to summon the strength within them, how to see things they couldn't see without it. And we see that over the years, people had documented their experience, their training, their practices for killing. Every prolific killer from history was a part of this cult, and they all documented their methods in one book. A book that had been stripped down and reconstructed into the Hercules Method. And not everyone could understand the book, just a specific few. Him, Luther Strode, and Luther Strode's father had the capability to be great, to be amazing killers. So Luther asked him a simple question, what do you want from me? And he made it clear, I want you to kill your father. I want you to join us by finishing the job. Luther looked at his pathetic father, the man who, when he was a child, put his hands on his brother. Nobody deserved death more than him. Luther had gone all his life hating this man. Luther was a slave to his hate. But this choice he was supposed to make was one he wasn't comfortable making. He was not going to be a slave to his hate any longer. He said no, standing up for himself, wearing his mask in front of the librarian, walking away once and for all. But this librarian didn't give a shit. He just wanted to kill. And he killed Luther's father with one kick to the face. With such great strength and speed, his brain turned to dust. And Luther knew at that second it was up. But before Luther could attack, he made it clear that he sent those gangsters to attack Luther's mother. Luther doesn't play about his mother, so he left the fight with such speed, thinking he could save his mother, running as fast as he could, crossing the streets like the Flash. He was not going to allow his mother get hurt, not any longer. He ran with such speed. If you were in his way, you would have been trampled. And when he saw his apartment door, he crashed straight through it like a boss, only to face a very weird sight. His mother was okay, and so was his best friend. The librarian lied. But did he lie? He said a special woman, and he forgot he had another special woman in his life. Right now, his baby girl was about to die, and he was miles away from her location. Thank you for watching my video, and thank you for 1,000 subscribers. You lot not ready for the second part of this story, I promise. Welcome back to my YouTube channel, and viewer discretion is extremely advised for this video because Luther Strode finally gets to start unaliving people in a spectacular manner. We are at 1,000 subscribers, so as promised, I'm going to be giving you guys video every single day for the rest of this year. You're welcome. We pick up back with our story with Luther going back to his house and finding his mother safe. He was overjoyed. He had to embrace her, even if she was asking him why did he break down the door. But he couldn't talk. Petra was in danger. So he looked at his best friend and told him to protect his mother, no matter what. No harm should come to her. And he said he will. Back with Petra though, she was suffering. Or was she really? Because at this moment when everyone thought she was crying, she wasn't. She was laughing. Because these guys were considered weak in her opinion. Letting them know that she's used to violence. She literally gets beat up every day by her father. So this was literally nothing to her. And when they heard it, they were a bit insulted. So the boss decided to give her a proper beatdown. But before he could, she kicked him in the family jewels like her boss. I love Petra. She is crazy like her boyfriend because Luther was on the hunt. He went to her house straight, only to find her deadbeat father there. So he decided to put a little beating on this man because he is a failure of a father. When she needed him the most, he wasn't there, but he could put his hands on her every day since she was born. Luther wasn't going to let that slide. He hates women beaters, so he beat the brakes off this guy. I mean, imagine the Hulk just beating you up in a corner. He was bloodied up. He was a bloody mess. Luther let him know that he is nothing before he left, and he truly knew that he was nothing. But back in Luther's house, Pete was going through it. Because Luther's mother doesn't take no for an answer. She wanted to know what was happening with her son. And Pete was going to tell her, which he did, because he's a pussy. He told her everything, but she didn't believe him. She thought Pete was making jokes, but he really wasn't. And she was threatening to beat his ass. That was until he came. Standing in the doorway was this absolute psychopath, the librarian. For those of you who don't know, go check out my first video. He is a literal butcher of men. So you know it's about to get bloody. And Petra was having the time of her life till she got smacked. But this was part of her plan. She really wanted to land on the bottle so she could get some shards and cut her ropes. The gangsters made it clear that the beating wasn't meant for her. It was meant for Luther. But if she wanted it, she could get it. And she smiled because something had changed. She just wanted to let them know one more thing. Look behind you, because Luther was already there. And he kicked ass. He dismantled the whole operation in seconds, kicking the boss so hard he flew and crashed into Petra. It was so funny. Petra managed to cut off the ropes and started beating the boss, but Luther told her to run. And at this moment, he was feeling himself, feeling confident, asking them, is this all you have to offer? But it really wasn't, because the boss had a gun hidden away, and he unleashed a flurry of bullets directly into Luther's chest, and he didn't miss. Back in the house though, we see the librarian had one goal. The goal was to take Luther's mother away. He needed her intact for what he had planned. But as soon as Pete heard that the goal was Luther's mother, he went into action mode because Luther gave him one job, and he was going to carry out that job one way or another, smacking a whole ass lamp on this guy's head. This was such a stupid move because the librarian just started laughing. And while he laughed, Pete told Luther's mother to run away, which she did, but she ran into the house, not out of it. Pete was seconds away from dying, but we see that Luther's mother went to grab a gun because she was not going to be threatened by another man. We see the librarian just simply tossed Pete aside and took the bullet head on. Luther's mother shot without even thinking, but the librarian wasn't shook at all. He just dodged the bullet. Moving at such speeds, he slowly just walked up to Luther's mother and tapped her on the forehead, knocking her out. He made it clear that he wanted her alive and intact, but for some reason, intact is the only option he's willing to carry out. He was about to kill her before Pete came through and saved her again, tossing a knife directly at the librarian's head. But the thing is, he's as skilled as Luther, so he caught it and sent it flying back, and this time taking 4 of Pete's fingers with it. Pete was bleeding. He was crying. He didn't expect to feel this type of pain today. But the librarian wasn't done, coming forward and letting Pete know he wants him to give Luther a message. Come to the docks if you want your mother. And Pete wasn't done either, because he picked up a knife and stabbed the librarian straight through his throat, which for some reason didn't kill him, just pissed him off. So he decided to teach Pete a lesson and how to be polite. And he's a butcher of men, so you know it was about to be bloody. Back with Luther though, he was shot in the chest 5 times, 5 bullets. A regular person should have died, but Luther was not a regular person. They were about to end his life before Petra stopped them. But this was how it was always going to end. He has to die. But they made the mistake of taking their eyes off Luther. This man just survived 5 bullets to the chest. Do you think he was down and out? Because he wasn't. He was just pissed off. Oh, and the bloodbath began. Luther butchered every single person in that room. If you watch my first video, you have seen this scene already, because this was what caused that scene. Luther, the butcher of men, was born. Petra clearly couldn't handle what she had just seen, so she passed out, and Luther picked her up and took her back to his place, only for her to awaken and not meet a better sight, but something way darker. Her friend, Luther's best friend, Pete, stood crucified on the wall of Luther's apartment, waiting to give him a message from the librarian. Because this wasn't over. This was just the beginning. Please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Leave a comment below to tell me what you guys want to see next. Peace and love. Luther Strode will lose everything. But would that change him? Would that transform this young, lovable hero into a very vicious killing machine? That is what we're going to discover in this series finale for the Luther Strode storyline. We continue our story from where we left off in the last issue. Luther came home and he saw what no man should ever see. His best friend, his brother, his partner, pinned up to the cabinet in his home, bloodied out, beating, dying. With one look with his new eyesight that allows him to see through the human body, Luther could tell his friend was dead. His rib cage was shattered. He was bleeding internally profusely. He was bleeding normally profusely. Pete sacrificed his life to save Luther's mother, but that was for nothing because she was still taking. Pete tried to make people smile by cracking a joke, but this was serious. He was dying. Luther tried to apologize. He tried to tell Pete he was sorry he came so late. But Pete, all he was focused on was saying he was sorry for letting the man take Luther's mother. He was a brother till the end, because those were his final words before he passed away. Luther had lost a brother. He was in mourning, and he was angry. And at this moment, Petra tried to touch him, but he said, Don't touch me. Not right now. Because right now, all I need is blood. She tried to let him know that the cops were coming, but he didn't care. Tell them whatever you need to tell them. The cops are going to do nothing because they cannot stop him. I can stop him. I'm going to stop him. And he put on his mask and he set off. Finally, Luther is going to kill with the intent to kill. But at the docks, the librarian was just meditating with one finger placed firmly on the ground. With Luther's mother dangling from a chain, he let her know, you do know you could break out of that chain right now. You are just limited by your mind. But your son has broken through that barrier. Your son is talented. Do you know how many copies of the Hercules Method I send out in a year? Thousands. But out of those thousands, your son was the only one to unlock his mind. And not only did he unlock his mind, he has gone further than anyone else. Speaking of, he plunged his fist into the ground and pulling out Luther. You cannot sneak up on me. Then he proceeds to slam Luther right into the ground, down a few floors, and ripping off some of his hair. But he wasn't impressed. Don't sneak up on me. But Luther wasn't done. His mission was his mother, and he was going to save her. He then comes back up, excited to see his mother. But this is not someone you take your eyes off of. The librarian proceeds to attack Luther, but Luther was quick, tossing him to the side. He used the opportunity to free his mother, breaking off the chain with one slice of his hand, just to show that he had crossed the bounds and was now superhuman. I don't see Captain America doing that. Taking his mother, he wanted to run away, but the librarian wasn't going to let him. And Luther was tired of running, stomping heavily into the ground. Big chunks of wood flew up and he shattered them, causing shrapnel to attack the librarian. When the librarian was blocking, Luther then used the opportunity to go for his face, because this time he was going to kill him for real. But the librarian wasn't weak. Using the opportunity, he stunned Luther and dislocated both of his arms, tossing him to the floor. Luther's mother could do nothing but watch as her son was shouting in pain. But he popped his arms back in their socket, and he was ready for round 2. But this time, the librarian thought to teach him a lesson, spitting blood directly into Luther's face, blinding him for a second. But at this point, Luther was too riled up. He was slashing, attacking, and the librarian tried to tell him to control himself. But at the same time, he wanted Luther to go crazy so he could do exactly what he did, which was kill his own mother with his bare hands. Seeing what he had just done, Luther was in shock. Luther was sad. The rage had passed, but the rage was still there. This librarian had ruined his life in one day. The most important person to him was dead by his hands. And because of this librarian was going to pay. Luther had focus, because now his goal was simple. Kill this man standing right in front of him. And he lunged, going directly for the librarian's arm. He shattered it with one punch, and the librarian returned the blow, shattering Luther's ribs. But we see Luther was practically feral, because he took out his eye, and the librarian took out his gut. Literally, he tossed him up so hard, like a yo-yo, grabbing onto Luther's intestine. Luther laid on the floor in pain, and the librarian took the opportunity to take jabs at him, expecting him to be done. But Luther wasn't done. He promised to kill this librarian, so he used his own gut to grab a hold of his neck and snapping it with one swift motion. The fight was over. Luther grabbed his own gut and put it back in his body. Using his mind, he commanded his flesh to heal, and he healed perfectly. But he forgot the librarian had the exact same abilities. Of course he could heal from a snapped neck. But Luther wasn't focused. He wanted to get his mom's body out of this place. He picked her up and decided to leave, only to get stopped by the librarian, who was ready for round 2, licking his wounds. Luther dropped his mother's body carefully, and he attacked. Both of them superhumans, like Captain America and Wolverine, fighting together in one small building. It was war. The building was vibrating. The pillars were getting torn down. Both of them were at war. Luther wanted his arm, and he took it, but the librarian told him, "I don't need my arm." Using his bone, he stabbed into Luther's chest. But Luther was filled with adrenaline. There was no pain, just the path to his revenge. With every punch, he brought the librarian closer to death. With every punch, this building shook. And when the cops came, the building collapsed, and from the ashes, the librarian stood up, victorious. He thought it best at this moment to give a grand speech about how Luther wasted his talents till he was stopped. With one pull on his spine, Luther ripped his spine and his skull from his body. There was no recovering from this. Luther was victorious, but Luther was surrounded. Petra tried to call to him, but he wasn't listening. He was filled with rage, so he attacked, only to be greeted by a hailstorm of bullets. He couldn't attack the bullets. He was done. Luther was considered to be dead. And what did they do with dead people? They took his corpse to the morgue. But Luther's story doesn't end here. He was still alive, and there were still people who needed killing, and he was going to kill everyone. Thank you guys for sticking to the end of this series. Please like and subscribe and share for more. And I promise you're going to see Luther Strode some more. I promise. Guess who's back? Back again. Luther Strode has finally returned. After 5 long years from the first video I made, he is back and ready to kill again. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. For those who are not subscribed, take the opportunity to subscribe right now, because I drop content every single day. Back to this amazing story, we pick up with Luther 5 long years after the events of the first video collection. We are introduced to two new drug dealers who are currently pondering this new job opportunity they've been offered. It is a lot of money that could change a person's life. But they also know if they accept this deal, this is the kind of job that will not even let them spend that money after, meaning there's a high possibility that they will be unalived before the end of the mission. But before they can make their decision, they hear a knock on the door, which puts them on edge because they know that the mystery man is creeping around. We learn that over 5 years, Luther has been going around butchering criminals, and now he has become a myth and a legend. So just to be cautious, he checked the eye hole before he opened the door, which was his mistake because his head exploded. With one punch, his head turned to dust. Not even able to comprehend what just happened to his friend, he was shocked. He whipped out his gun, looking for who to shoot, but Luther just grabbed the guy's body and pulled it through the eye hole, and he was gone. He came out looking for his friend's body and Luther, but he found none. What he did see was the headless corpse of his friend on top of a truck. He was scared. He was terrified. This was like the boogeyman, only to take a step back and he slammed into a wall. A big, muscular, 6'7" wall. At this moment, the myth became real. Luther had been butchering a lot of people. He had a wall dedicated to all the criminals he had killed over the years. Now, in his moment of reprieve, he took a shower, because right now, he had nothing. No family, no friends, just his body and his mission. And death was a familiar person to him at this point. This is a different Luther Strode. And we see that because on the next panel, we're introduced to these two gentlemen discussing this exact person. Luther had been killing all of their guys, and they know that obviously after you take out the body, you take out the head. They were going to be next. We see that the butler doesn't want to believe in Luther, but his boss was a cautious person. He was not putting that up to chance. He liked his life. And right now, the butler was still battling with the fact that this guy was now his new master because his father passed away, and he should be giving this child the respect he gave his father. But before he could, he's introduced by these two thugs that thought it was smart to just barge into a meeting. But we find out that they're invited because the young master had a plan to trap Luther Strode, and it involved these two boneheads. Feeling entitled, they demanded the seat from the butler, and the butler was with that smoke. He was ready to throw hands at this moment, but the young master calmed him down, and he left like a G, but not before bumping shoulders with these guys, just to let them know that he's not scared. And so later that night, we find out that the plan was to get a couple of girls and allow them to attack Luther, since for some reason he doesn't touch women, and we all know why. If you remember correctly, he killed his mother by accident with his own arm. So yes, he doesn't touch women, but he sure as hell beats the absolute dog shit out of men. Because at this moment, before the plan could even take effect, Luther was there, and he had already killed someone. Seeing a brother in arm bloodied and battered, his teammate wanted to call for help, only to be slammed in the face by a sewer lid, splitting his face in half. A gruesome death, but there was more to come, because they heard the ruckus and unleashed a flurry of bullets at that direction. But Luther was not stupid. He drove the car into the building, and when they saw the car, they kept shooting and shooting, and they only stopped till they saw blood. But that wasn't Luther's blood, it was one of their men. And at that moment, this guy thought it was smart to pull up to the bus. Instantly, Luther just popped out and dragged him under it like a freaking horror movie with the complete glowing red eyes. He begged, he scratched, he asked for help. Help me, please. And when his friends couldn't move, he shot, killing one instantly. Seeing another of their friend dead, they took off. They were not willing to die for nobody. But this was not even the plan. The plan was to escape and bring Luther into the back room, filled to the brim with women. And everything was going according to plan, because Luther followed this one guy and killed him on impact when he kicked down the door. Luther was here for blood, and he was going to get it. Because as soon as he stepped into that place, all the women shot, trying to kill him. But this was Luther. He was really adept at dodging bullets. He dodged every single bullet. Unlike last time, he was skilled enough now. Like a dark, misty cloud, he dodged all the bullets, and faster than fast, he grabbed onto this guy, slamming him to the wall. But this would-be assassin was not giving up. He was a fighter, attacking Luther, but Luther caught that blade, disarmed him, and then proceeds to plunge his arm deep into this guy's chest, ripping out his heart and tossing his corpse at the girls. Standing before them, they saw death. Luther was death. They were frozen. They couldn't move. He was just standing there with the guy's heart in his hand. But this is when we find out the plan was a success. The goal was to see who their would-be attacker was. And this guy was caught on camera. Luther was real. There was no more boogeyman. It was just a man. And now they had a face to the name. But the butler was still pissed off. We lost 20 men just for you to confirm this guy was real? I am pissed off. But the rich prick was like, nah, don't worry about it. Now we know he's real. We can up our game and get better killers to go kill him. That was his plan. And he had a secret weapon. A weapon that claimed to know Luther. And that weapon was Petra. Luther's former lover, Petra, 5 years later. And for some reason, she blames her life being trash on Luther himself. And she's looking to get her revenge by ending his life. Trust me, this story gets way more crazier than you can ever possibly imagine. Luther Strode kills 5 people in 5 seconds. He is the Terminator. What is good, people? Welcome back to my YouTube channel, where we talk about anime, comics, movies, and stuff. And today, the topic of conversation is Luther Strode, our glorious murder king, because in this comic, he kills 5 people in 5 seconds, and I'm not even capping. We pick up our story with Luther training his mind and his body to perfection, holding up the total mass of his body with an index finger, a freaking index finger, only for him to pause because he sensed somebody entering his home. He was about to get furious, but he knew this person because he cracked a smile. This is when we switch perspectives to his bedroom. We see someone breaking down the wooden planks covering the window, and we see that it's Petra. This crazy shorty had found her way to Luther's home. How she tracked him, I don't know. Wielding a tiny revolver, she walked around in his apartment, searching for him, calling to him, Luther, show yourself. For some reason, she wasn't scared. She should be, because right next to her was his murder wall, the license and pictures of every single person he has butchered. Even when she saw it, she had flashbacks. Shorty was traumatized because she witnessed Luther's butchering firsthand when she was younger, 5 years ago. When she came back to reality, he stood behind her, giving serious serial killer vibes. Even her was so scared, she had to shoot her gun, but he just dodged the bullet. Didn't stop her from falling to her ass though. But Luther was still a nice guy, offering her a hand to pick her off the floor. But she was still terrified. Or was she really? Because we all know Petra is a psychopath. She was clearly not that intimidated because she still came here to this supposed monster's house. She then proceeds to make a joke, don't rip my arm off, which visibly made Luther uncomfortable because she knows that he doesn't touch women. And you have to be a psychopath to make an actual killer uncomfortable. But now he notices that Petra is different. She's changed, but she made it clear that so has he. What has he been doing all this time? But he couldn't answer. In that split second, she clocked him in his jaw, and he told her never to do that again. And she said, what? What are you gonna do? And he was silent. He couldn't handle this girl. She was too crazy. All he could do was ask her again, why are you here? And she got pissed off. Why am I here? You left after everything that happened, after all the people you killed, after everything that happened with Pete. You just left for 5 years without a word. Luthor stayed silent for a while before replying, and that is worth killing me for. But she made it clear, I'm not here to kill you. I'm here to save you. But Luthor was not convinced because he sensed something. Is that why you brought an army with you? But she was confused. I didn't bring no army. And at that moment, Luthor knew it was about to get nasty, so he told her to run. But she wasn't quick enough, so he just tossed her around the room. Which was when she realized that, oops, let me get the hell out of here. Luthor just smiled, because it was time to kill. And for some reason, a boy that didn't want to kill at all now loves this shit. So he just put on his mask and go ready. Everyone go ready. It was about to be a bloodbath. We see his would-be assailants as a group of mercenaries, professionals by the looks of it, but that was not even as impressive as you think, because this was Luther freaking Strode. He lives for this kind of shit. And he was ready, because as soon as they thought he was gone, they looked up, only to see him there, hanging out. And he said, boo. Coming down with so much force, he split 2 people in half. In a second. That shouldn't even be possible. He had no weapons, so they decided to shoot first, ask questions later. But that didn't help. Luther Strode was like mist, was like smoke and mist, walking around the room and just killing people. In a split second, he killed 5 people. In 5 seconds. The captain of the group of mercenaries had to call in and let the boss know, you don't pay me enough for this shit. This man just killed 5 people in 5 seconds. What the hell kind of job did you put me in? Only to see that the boss was just outside chilling in his bus. So the butler let him know that this is even better. The more people, or rather the less people there are, the more money you make. Or you could just leave the mission and all your friends' death will be for nothing. But the butler wasn't done, because as we know, he was never down with this plan in the first place. So he switched the radio, calling the fat man and letting him know that his plan is costing them a lot of money. But the fat man just laughed. You're not going to pay anybody any money. Luther is going to kill every single person in that room, and I will take him out. So relax. Back at the apartment though, we saw Petra trying to escape, because at this moment she knows that Luther is just out for blood. So it's best she escapes through the window. A couple of broken bones are nothing compared to no head. But just before she could dip, she's stopped by one of the gunmen, who made it clear that the fat man also planned for all of this. He knew that she would lead them straight to Luther, so they followed her. And when she heard this, she gave up. But did she? Because as we know, Petra is a freaking psychopath. She grabs the guy's gun and slams his family jewels so hard, he's discombobulated for a second. But she wasn't done, crushing his freaking nose and using the gun to clock him, knocking him out. As soon as he held the gun, she knew that this was going to be her new best friend. But on the other hand, Luther was having the time of his life. He was killing left and right, busting people's heads through the wall. But as we now know, this was all planned by the fat man, because he used this opportunity while Luther was distracted to take him out. But the thing is, Luther was prepared, using the guy's body to block the shots, but he wasn't done. Nah, he saw his target, and he chucked this drugged up freaking soldier directly at the fat man. The fat man just stepped aside, dodging this person, and Luther smiled because the day wasn't over. He still had more people to kill, and they were all standing right in front of him. Before he could enjoy his massacre, Petra started shooting kneecaps. Shorty had good eyes, but Luther wasn't even bothered because through the bullet storm, he was still killing, grabbing onto this guy's gun and throwing him to the side, giving him such a kick he should have shattered his spine. Luther grabbed the rest, slamming them head first, destroying their skulls. But the last guy had it the worst because Luther took his gun and plunged it into his chest, the blunt end. Can you imagine the sheer force it takes to chuck a whole ass gun into someone's chest? Gun that isn't even sharp. But this move left Luther open to shots, and he took them, two to be exact. But he wasn't phased. He just walked towards the guy that shot and shattered his skull with his feet. The killing was over, but before he could celebrate, he realized that Petra was still here, and she had a gun to her head. Another man, the fat man, was here, and he promised Luther, don't move. You're fast, of course, but you're not faster than my trigger fingers. Let's settle this peacefully. And Luther said okay, commanding his body to bleed profusely while he gathered up the blood. As if she could read his mind, she fell to the ground and he chucked all this blood into the fat man's face, getting ready to deliver one of the most devastating Superman punches, skull-crushing punch to this fat man's head. But before he could, the fat man stopped him with his own fist. That should be impossible. Petra knew that should be impossible. This is when we realized that this man was exactly like Luther with the same abilities. Of course, the fat man just picked Luther up and let him know, did you think you and the librarian were the only ones? Nah. And trust me, it's about to get crazy. So like and subscribe for more. Peace. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. And today, Luther Strode dies. Nah, I'm just kidding. Luther Strode has found another talented individual, just like the librarian, just like himself. And this time, this one seems to be more dangerous because he was created by Cain himself to be the hunter of every talented person who has crossed the line and become a threat to their existence. And for once, Luther Strode is considered to be a threat to the existence of the talented people. So sit back, relax, and enjoy my story. We pick up our story with Luther facing off against the fat man, who for some reason just made it apparent that he has the same abilities as Luther himself. But he made one thing clear: Luther can be greater than he is right now. But the thing that's holding him back was Petra herself. She is considered to be a distraction. He can't even fight to his fullest potential because she is in the room. So he decided to teach Luther a lesson, tossing him to another room. He was that strong. Pulling up to Petra, he was about to kill her, threatening her with some crude words, but he knew that that would trigger Luther, and Luther attacked. This was just to show that Luther is too emotional, that he strikes without thinking. So, after tossing him to the side, Luther just looked to Petra and said, please leave. It has become very apparent that she was really a distraction. So after she left, Luther felt free. And when the fat man attacked, he caught it, but still, this guy was also talented, so he wasn't really weak, just fat. But that one kick wasn't enough to put Luther down. They both got ready to attack, and they attacked. But the fat man was fast, tossing 8 shurikens directly at Luther's chest and arms. These shurikens were laced with poison, strong enough to paralyze an elephant or a rhino. But Luther was different. And he knew Luther was different, so he thought it best to explain why he was capturing Luther in this manner. He was the hunter. Because people like Luther, the librarian, they're a big risk. If left unchecked, they could conquer the world and destroy it. And humanity was starting to notice their presence, meaning they started to hunt them together. And the numbers were just too much. So Cain, the creator of this technique, decided to create a hunter charged with tracking down and containing the ability users that cross the line, that seeks to just use their powers whenever they want to, killing whoever, and also restraining himself because he knew he could not be controlled. So Cain was currently in prison somewhere on planet Earth. He also made it clear that all this time he has been the one protecting Luther. Luther has been on a killing spree, killing as much bad guys as he possibly could. But for some reason, he was not a wanted man. He was not on the news. He was not everywhere. He was even a myth. Apparently, the hunter had been erasing all traces of Luther's presence, killing whoever knew the truth. And now, he was here to just contain him. But Luther was not going down without a fight. Using one of his teeth, he took out the medicine, because every inch of him was a weapon. He took out all the shurikens as well, because even while drugged, he's still Luther Strode. The mind commands and the body listens. That was a mantra that they go by every day. But obviously a drugged up Luther stood no chance against this guy. But he still held his own, because he was still Luther freaking Strode, tossing the fat man to the window. But the thing is, he wasn't thinking, because he tossed the fat man to the body of the people he just killed, and they had guns. And so the fat man picked up an AK-47 and went to work. But just outside, Petra had seen the bus that was filled with all the bosses of this gang, and she decided to pluck it full with holes. But the butler was with that smoke, coming out and having a gun battle with Petra, which she won because she had a freaking AK-47 or M9. I can't figure which gun that is, but still she won. And she was about to execute the boss as well, because all this was his doing before the fat man came flying into their van. Luther has apparently won this battle, which was to be expected. The fat man was apparently about 200 years old. But the boss saw the gun and took the opportunity to shoot at Petra, but she was just crazy, slamming the AK-47 in his face. She don't play. But anyways, the fat man was currently bleeding out of his mind. This guy was just way too talented. Luther might be peak of their kind. Even while tranquilized, they still clashed, and that clash shattered buildings. Petra jumped into the van and told the boss to drive because she was going to help her friend. And right now, she had to help Luther. And she shot. But the thing is, bullets don't affect people like them. So it was literally just a nuisance. She shot, and even the fat man was like, bruh, can you stop? You're distracting me. And because he was distracted, Luther got the upper hand, tossing him in the path of the car. Mind you, the car was moving, and it wasn't moving slow. He should be dead, but he wasn't. And for some reason, Luther failed to comprehend the fact that if he could heal from it, the fat man could definitely heal from it. Before he could even celebrate, the fat man was back, and he grabbed the whole of Petra's neck, threatening Luther that he was going to kill her unless Luther comes to save her. And he was coming, filled with rage, which is why the fat man told the rich prick to drive because he didn't want to die. You don't threaten the man's woman. That's just like a no-no. And Luther was inches away from saving her, but they were just too fast. And remember, Luther is drugged up, so obviously he could have caught them, but he was drugged up, so he lost them. But the thing is, they left the butler behind, and Luther was going to get this information one way or another. But like I said, the butler was with the smoke. He wasn't going to tell Luther shit. But Luther made it clear that the whole point of all of this was just to catch him. The fat man was using the butler and his boss. That right now, his boss is going to probably die. So give me the address now. Back with the fat man though, he was actually surprised at this outcome. He thought Luther would be an easy catch, but he is apparently the best of them. He was a serious threat, and now he's going to need help. So they go back to the mansion, and the rich prick is pissed off that Luther is not normal. There is no way they're going to survive the night, but the fat man was not even worried because he had a plan in a briefcase. A backup plan that could not be released till now because he was such a threatening presence. But now he was needed. Jack the Ripper was needed. You heard me right. Jack the freaking Ripper, the serial killer from London, was needed. The mind commands and the body agrees. Of course he didn't age, but rather he aged slowly. Because right now, he was being freed just to kill Luther Strode. And the gift, or the offering, was Luther Strode's woman. Jack the Ripper had a thing for women. So this gave him extra motivation. And the fact that he got to kill. He really enjoys killing. So right now, he had to put on his equipment, his trench coat, his precious darlings, his two sharp-ass knives, and his perfect hat. Because he was on the hunt, and his prey had just pulled into the mansion. Luther Strode versus Jack the Ripper. Crazy. The greatest killer in history, Jack the Ripper, has finally been revealed as the person who was brought in to take down Luther Strode. Do you think he's going to succeed? Let's find out together. And yeah, don't forget to subscribe and like and drop a comment. But yeah, as soon as we start this issue, we're introduced to pure violence because Luther was going to get his shorty one way or another. Jumping into this mansion, the first thing he saw was the corpse of the rich prick from earlier. Jack the Ripper was a killer through and through, and he wasn't here to play games. But the thing is, neither was Luthor, because Luthor attacked. But no matter how fast he was, Jack was faster, landing behind him and slicing him open. He made a comment that Luthor is impressive. He has the strength and the speed, but he lacks finesse. He lacks style. And Jack the Ripper is all about style, slamming Luthor's head into the stairway. But that wasn't going to stop Luthor. He grabbed a bunch of wood and tossed them like shuriken, but because of his strength, they passed like bullets. But Jack was too fast. He wasn't impressed. He then proceeds to take a deep breath, and Luthor saw this and knew, oh shit. Because Jack unleashed an onslaught on Luthor, carving him like a freaking painting. Literally, he was carving images onto Luthor's flesh. Luthor got tired of this quick. With his quick reflexes, he grabbed onto Jack's coat and tossed him directly into a wall. Jack was having fun with this because he just stomped his daggers into the wall like Spider-Man, observing the work of art he did on Luthor's chest. Imagine how good you have to be to draw on your enemy's chest during battle. He hoped to finish this fight with one swift attack, but Luthor was quick. Grabbing onto his legs, he slammed him so hard the floor evaporated. Back with Petra though, she just finally woke up and she was free, but she wasn't alone. The fat man was with her and he was getting a gun ready to take down Luthor. She was pissed off. Why do you want to kill him so bad? He looked at her. Kill him? I don't want to kill him. The work he does is holy. The work he means is murder. He thinks murder is holy. He goes on to explain that he's just here to protect his kind. He's not going to kill Luthor. He's going to imprison him for a long, long time. He also reveals that he knows that she is loyal to him. And she was shocked because nobody's meant to know that she double-crossed everybody. But he seems to know everything. Just like he knows the fight was coming directly to him. Because at this moment, Luthor came crashing in with Jack the freaking Ripper. They both clearly enjoyed trying to kill each other because the house was basically a playground. Even the hunter tried to tell Jack to chill, but Jack was like, nah, I want to kill this dude. But Luthor was quick as well. Grabbing onto Jack, he tossed him like a boomerang directly into the hunter's head, tossing them both into the yellow room. He looked at Petra with his demon eyes, telling her to run. And she did, very obedient. But this was a simple move because Jack also came out saying, do you think she can run from me? I am Jack the freaking Ripper. Chasing women is my thing. But we see that Luthor had a plan because actually, catching bullets in his muscle tissue was something he learned a long time ago. So catching Jack's daggers in his chest was child's play. He literally got stabbed in his chest. But now we find out that the reason those daggers were not out was because he was holding it. He was holding daggers in his chest with his packs. All these years, Luthor literally became a legend, slamming his elbow directly into Jack's skull. He was ready, he was prepared. But the hunter had other plans. Shooting a taser directly at Luthor's chest, he let Luthor know that yes, of course, the mind commands and the body follows. But what happens if the body cannot follow? Shocking his body would destabilize the connection from his brain to his muscle tissue, rendering his abilities paused. He told Luthor, stop. This doesn't have to be this hard. You wanted someone to stop you. I am here, so stop. But Luthor was such a G. He slammed his skull into the hunter's face. I will stop when I want to, punching the hunter to the floor. Jack saw an opening and thought he could strike, but Luthor just caught him with his free hand, pinning both of them. He was winning against two trained killers. Luthor was him. But back in this big-ass mansion, though, there was someone here. Not the corpse of the rich prick, no. Someone was in the kitchen making a sandwich, or should I say, a gun sandwich, because the butler was here for revenge, and Petra came busting through. But he just aimed a gun at her and said, "Are you with him or are you with them?" But she stood by Luther, saying she's with him, and he let her live because he was here for them. They had killed his boy. He raised that boy. Even if he's a prick, he's still his boy. He's going to kill both of them. And she let him know that he possibly couldn't fight those guys. They're monsters. And he knew this, but he's going to hurt them in such a way they would never recover. Back with Luther, we see him and the Fat Man, because the Fat Man knew that Luther couldn't kill both of them, but he was wrong. Luther was still holding back, so he decided to stop, pulling out a dagger and stabbing the Fat Man in his eyes. Jack saw him do this and said, "Wow, you're a savage." And Luther smiled, punching him so hard he snapped his neck. While the Fat Man cried and called Luther son, Luther pulled out the other dagger and threw it in his other eye, instantly blinding the Fat Man. Luther was a savage. I mean, what the hell? Jack acted like he was out, but he wasn't, and Luther was not deceived. So Jack said, "No more games." Using his hand, he shattered Luther's arm in 2 places. The Fat Man saw this, or rather he heard this, and slammed Luther at the back of his head. Jack then locked all of Luther's pressure points with his hand. Realizing that Luther was such a talent in killing, he was sad to actually let this fight end. So he slammed Luther to the ground with a kick. The Fat Man was clearly upset because he lost his sight, but he wasn't out because he had the same talents as Luther. He could see with his nose and his ears. Luther tried to get up, but Jack was having fun. They were not going to let him stand. Matter of fact, they removed his mask, and you know that's a no-no in the hero game. But this fight wasn't a fight. They wanted him out. Luther was going to die. But the thing is, he still had Petra, and she was busy looking for the perfect gun to save her man. There was so much to pick from until she saw him, a Tommy gun. So she went out to do battle. But the thing is, Jack was ready for her as well. Luther Strode has finally hit a wall that he would have to surpass if he wants to be what we all know he could be. But first, he would have to battle Jack the Ripper and the Binder at the same damn time. Easier said than done, because both of these guys are basically superhuman. But so is Luther himself. But first of all, he would have to be free from his chains, and he would need the help of Petra, who is currently being hunted by Jack the Ripper. But Petra ain't no freaking damsel in distress. She is far different than the prey Jack the Ripper is used to hunting. She fights back. She had enough of her senses on red alert that she knew she was being tracked, and as soon as she saw motion, she attacked Jack the Ripper, unleashing a flurry of bullets. But this was Jack the Ripper. Luther had strength and speed. Jack the Ripper had all speed, so he dodged those bullets very easily. But even when she ran out, she kept shooting, pulling out another pistol, blasting. But Jack, he was just toying with her, because he enjoyed the chase more than the actual killing. So he let her run. He let her hide. He was just playing with her at this point because he could see straight through all these walls. She tried to lead him outside. But nah, Jack wasn't no fool. But he liked to play. He acted like he was deceived. But when she thought she was safe, he popped his ugly head, ready to cut her throat right here, right now. And at that moment, we see Luther and the Binder. Luther was begging, "Please let me go. Let me save her. Please." But the Binder wasn't letting him go. Matter of fact, the Binder was disappointed. She was Luther's greatest distraction. He could be more. But he is limited by this one girl. Why? This is when Luther made it clear that he loves this one girl. That is why. But the Binder just laughed. What has love gotten you so far? You killed your own mother with your bare hands. Filled to the brim with rage, all Luther could say was kill you. And the Binder agreed, yes, of course, I will die. I am old and weak. And all of a sudden we see that his death was closer than he could possibly imagine, because right behind him was the butler, wielding a shotgun, letting off a couple of shots into the Binder's chest. The Binder didn't even shake. He was superhuman, like I said before. He expected to die, but not for some bullets directly shot to his chest. Even Luther caught bullets in his muscle tissue. Using his free hand, he split the shotgun in half and also crippled the butler. But the butler had a plan because he knew he couldn't face this monstrosity. So he tried to lead him to the kitchen, and he was successful, taking him directly to where he needed him to be. The binder asked him a simple question: why do all of this? You know you can't kill me. And the butler let him know, you killed Mikey. That was my boy. And I am going to pay you back in blood. Because the butler had a plan. He wanted him in this room, and he was willing to go down with him if it meant hurting him, because he let off a shot, igniting the whole house in flames. The shockwave was so massive it was felt all over this house. Even Luther felt it, Petra and Jack the Ripper felt it. They knew someone was going to die, and Jack was going to take the person's final life. From the rubble, we see the hunter, the binder, charred, half of his body gone, burnt away in the flame. And he knew he couldn't survive for so long. And there, in the shadows, stood Jack the Ripper, his one prisoner. Deep down, he knew Jack was not here to help. They had an alliance, but that alliance was over the moment he became weak, like this. And Jack was here to take his life. So he stood his ground like a man and said, go for it. And Jack did. Wielding his precious little daggers, Jack went like the Flash, slicing off the head and the guts of the binder in a split second. So fast, it felt like he broke the sound barrier. Stretching out his arm, he pulled off the hunter's head in triumph, celebrating his newfound freedom. But Petra was still in this house because she was not going to leave Luther. Not again. Jack, watching all this play out, tossed the head, hitting Petra and tossing her directly into the flame. Luther was forced to watch the love of his life get tortured by a madman. But Jack was free now. No hunters, no binders. He wanted to explore the world. He wanted to kill the world. So he decided to let her burn because there is more prey to hunt. Luther begged Petra to leave. He shouted, but she said, shut the hell up. I'm not leaving you. Not again. She knew the only way to pull out Luther's true strength was to put her life at risk. But Luther was scared. Luther didn't think he had the strength, but she reminded him he does have the strength. He has lost so many people. His best friend, his mother. He was not going to lose her. Luther made a choice. As soon as he heard her call his name one last time, Luther made a choice, breaking the chains that were built to hold special people, talented people. And she wiped the fake tears from her face because she knew she had succeeded. Luther, through the flames, grabbed the love of his life and broke through the mansion doors. Smiling now, Luther no longer looked like a demon. He looked like a man at peace. And so did Petra, because she was having the time of her life. When they were at the safe distance, he tried to confess that he loves her, but she knew. She always knew. And they shared a passionate kiss. But the mission wasn't over, because right now, somewhere, Jack the Ripper was going to kill a lot of people. And we see that at that exact moment, Jack the Ripper was walking into a mall with a big-ass grin on his mouth. You lot voted for him, and so he has returned. Luther Strode, now back and improved with a new look. And this comic is going to be different because it starts out different. It starts out with a story of love. I know, right? A book that centers around murder and killing starts out with love. But yes, it really does. Welcome back to Luther Strode, and this is the legacy of Luther Strode. Enjoy. We pick up our story with the one man in the field. In his hand, he's wielding the jawbone of a tiger or a jaguar. I cannot really tell, but it has been fashioned into a weapon. Standing before him was an armada filled with soldiers, mercenaries, warriors, grown men fashioned for war, fashioned to take life. But this man was just bored. He looked at them and knew instantly what he had to do. which was dismantle this army with his bare hands and his jaw. When he was done with his work of art, the fields were filled with red. Everywhere was covered in red. Looking up to the sky, he was still bored. So he went home, back to his lonely tent. He was so bored and uninterested in everything that he had nothing to do but rest. On his way, he washed his hands of all the blood. Without even looking up, he realized that he was not alone. Someone was here. He was surprised because usually people are afraid of him, especially because he doesn't hide what he's capable of. He's a weapon of war. But she was different. She was not like any other woman he had ever met. They spent a night of passion. But the next day he was in chains. The next day he was supposed to push 2 pillars down. And he said her name, Delilah. That was a long time ago. But now in the present, we follow Petra in a cop car immediately after the massacre that happened in the mall with Jack the Ripper. She made it clear that arresting them was a mistake. Not only are they innocent, but this arrest was pointless. And the cops found this funny. How is this pointless? We have you handcuffed and we have your boy imprisoned. But she said not for long, because you don't know who you have imprisoned. Back in the car with Luther, we see him surrounded by cops, and he was in chains, covered in blood. It was quiet, too quiet, because they knew what he was capable of. Every single police officer in that room was terrified. One of the cops was losing his mind. He had to be told by his superior to chill out, but he couldn't. They had shot this guy before, point blank range, but he's okay with no injuries. How? And why in God's name is he so quiet? They were all wondering, and he just said, I am listening. And they asked him, listening for what? And he made it clear, the bridge. Instantly, he broke through his chains and caused an accident, causing traffic. Petra was loving this because she warned them. The cops stopped their car wondering what happened, only to be greeted with the freaking door right in the middle. They had survived only because Luther could aim really well. Realizing the prisoner was free, they opened fire. But Luther had a bulletproof door as his shield. Picking up a helmet, he used the helmet to take out one of the cops. Direct hit to his face. He was out cold. The second, however, was going to get punched. But Luther remembered that he's just human. So he flicked his head, knocking him out with a single freaking finger. Freeing Petra, they were about to escape, but they were surrounded by cops wielding guns. So Luther asked his shorty, do you trust me? And she said, of course. Jumping on his back, he dived from the bridge straight into the water. He was gone. But that took place 5 years ago. Right now, they were on the run. We see a vast forest and CDs linked up to form a target for someone to use to aim. And the person was really good at aiming. Petra had apparently been practicing, and she became good. But Luther was still very sneaky, and he snuck up behind her. This hulking behemoth was now a nice guy. No more the demon Luther we're used to. He was in no way, shape, or form a pacifist, but he was not going to kill unless he extremely needed to kill you. And now he had the love of his life. They shared a moment, but Luther came with news. Picking Petra off the ground, he had to tell her something important because he had a newspaper. And on that newspaper, they find out there was a massacre. It's been 5 years, but now they had a job to do. And Petra asked him if he's sure, because this can be just any psychopath, but he knew this was his kind. And she celebrated. Finally, she gets to kill people. Petra was one of a kind. Rummaging through her weapons box, she asked Luther what's the plan. And Luther simply said, we go to the city and follow the blood, because they always kill and leave it messy. We then see in a cafe that one gentleman-looking guy was eating a steak, and the person who cooked the steak had his guts on the table. He was supported by another black woman sitting next to him in a room full of corpses, but their dinner was rudely interrupted by one person, Luther, and when he came, they said, oh, you. He simply took a seat, looking them eyeball to eyeball and said, yes, me. They smiled. You have come to stop us, have you? He said yes. They asked him again, do you think you can? He smiled and said yes. In a brief conversation, they exchanged blows in their minds because they were all the same. Part of their skill sets was being able to predict the future, and now they were predicting the combat, and it was lovely. But Luther wasn't here for that. He made it clear he doesn't want to fight, but they made it clear they love to kill, that they love to fight. They are with the smoke, and they are ready for it. Luther simply sighed and moved his chair a little to the left because he had a plan. Even if he didn't like killing, his shorty definitely did because she busted his brain spectacularly with a headshot. Luther was disappointed at the bloodshed, but he knew this was the only way to stop them, and he knew what came next. Tossing the chairs aside, it was time for combat. She launched a chair at Luther, but he was ready. But her target wasn't Luther. Her target was Petra, his one weakness. But Luther wasn't going to let nobody hurt his baby girl. She launched in the air, ready to kill Petra, but he grabbed onto her hair, pulling her and binding her, telling her, you do not have to do this. But she smiled. Yes, yes I do. While this was going on, Petra was getting the hell out of there because she knew what this girl was capable of. Luther told her to go. Shorty was as fast as Jack the Ripper, but Petra had a bike and she was out of there, flipping this girl off as she drove. Luther failed to bind her hands though, because she grabbed on his family jewels and pushed him aside, telling him he's pathetic and running after Petra because even if you're on a bike, I will still catch you. Just as Jack the Ripper made it clear, you cannot run from us. Luther was fast, but she had the distance. He knew he couldn't catch up, but Petra had experience with his kind. She shot at her. She knew Shorty could dodge bullets, but she only shot at her so she would miss her head, causing her to land on the wrong spot. Petra was out of there. She wasn't playing, and Shorty wasn't playing too because she jumped on a FedEx bus, coming directly for Petra. You die today, for real. But Luther was not going to let that happen. He was hitching his own ride, you would think. Nah, big man wanted to be Superman. He jumped on someone's hood and launched himself. He was flying through the streets, hoping to catch the FedEx truck, but he missed. You would think he would die, right? Nah, he slammed into the ground, and the shockwave was so strong, he shook the FedEx bus and Petra on the bike. He wasn't done. Grabbing onto his sports car, he just looked at the driver and said, drive faster. He was trying to catch up to the FedEx truck, but Shorty was not going to let that happen. Jumping through the driver's seat, she smashed his skull in. Shorty was violent, very violent, causing an accident. She launched herself off the truck, and Luther simply caught her and tossed her to the side, landing safely on the floor, because he wasn't going to let nobody hurt his babe. He tried to talk to her. He tried to explain, I don't want to do this. We could stop this right now, but she really wanted to kill him. Petra stopped her car and came flying back. Luther explained that he doesn't want to kill her, and she smiled, saying she knows. You don't want to kill me, but I want to kill you. So I win. He smiles. I don't want to kill you. And Petra's bike came flying through. Luther simply snatched his girl and tossed her in the air like a Disney princess, catching her. Forgetting mid-battle, they were literally in the middle of a battle. But thankfully, he was Luther Strode. He protected her. Tossing Petra to the side, he picked up Shorty and slammed her head straight through a wall. But he caused the driver to be distracted. But he wasn't going to let nobody die on his watch. Running for the truck, Shorty ran too. But Luther was too quick. He was out of there, and Shorty was in the driver's seat. While Luther was running on the side of the truck, she accepted her fate because Luther was just stronger. And Petra, she had to watch the truck explode, thinking Luther was on it. But she knew he was always right behind her. He couldn't help it, embracing the love of his life because both of them survived this battle. But they were not alone. Standing right next to them was freaking Delilah. Oh my god. And we are back with another Luther Strode video. And in my opinion, this has one of the the top 3 best fight scenes in the whole series. And that is saying something because the Luther Strode franchise has a lot of fight scenes. And you guys have seen some, but you guys haven't seen the best. You will. Quick reminder though, you guys should please click the subscribe button. I could tell when you don't, so it's really important that you do. I'm trying to grow this community. We continue our story with the freaking private jet pulling up to an airport in Russia. But that's not all that's a mystery, because we are also introduced to a very blonde, tall, lanky-looking woman coming off of this private jet. She apparently had a coffin shipped, and she had it put in our car. And when she got in the car, she just knocked on it and boom, Luther Strode came popping out like a jack in a box. Apparently Luther can use the hibernation technique, so he could just sleep anywhere and he would be fully recharged when he woke up. But knowing that they were fugitives, this was the best mode of transportation. Luther Strode in the coffin and Petra wearing a wig. But this time something was different. They were not traveling alone. No, they came with Delilah, the great temptress. Petra obviously didn't like her, just for the sheer fact that she could hypnotize people around her. Men, women, children. But thankfully there were 2. So she bent back to making out with her guns. She's a gun person. Because they had a means, or rather they had a mission for being in Russia. The mission was to go see the gardener, one of them. The only person she knows that has the location of Cain. And Luther had to be very careful being around Delilah. She could control him anytime. But that's why Petra was here. She was there to wake him up, because having Luther controlled by Delilah is not something they want. So they set off to the snowy mountains, everywhere covered in white. The road was so covered in snow, they had no choice but asking Luther to clear a path, which he did with one flick of his leg. But that exposed the road, the beautiful road covered in white tiles. But this wasn't just any white tiles, no. This was the skulls of the people that came looking for the gardener. The gardener created a road with the skulls of his enemies. This was the world Petra was in right now, so she had to have a stomach for this type of horrors. She almost threw up, but Delilah was always there to make fun of her, making it clear that she doesn't belong here. But Petra was always going to stay where her man was staying, telling Delilah to screw off, but Delilah was very, very convincing. She almost had Petra, but Luther woke her up, because right now they could not fight between each other. Right now Luther had to go ahead, because this guy was such a monster. He was worried they would die. It's best he handles this man himself. But could he? Because as soon as he entered, he saw a nest of weapons of people that came attacking this simple warrior. Before he could move, he heard a voice speaking in Russian. Luther doesn't speak in Russian, so he asked, "Do you speak English?" The voice just replied in Russian. This is when we see the warrior. Luther is a big guy, 6'8", but this guy was like 8 feet tall. He was all muscle. He wasn't fat. He was straight up like Luther. More dangerous in my opinion. Thor made it clear he wasn't here to fight, he just wanted information. But this guy simply just picked Luther up with one hand, picking him off the floor, ready to remove his head from his body. But Delilah was there to calm him down in Russian. But he wasn't calm, he wanted violence, and violence he will have. Tossing Luther to the feet of his women. And Luther knew he was coming in with the attack. With one single punch, Luther got ready to absorb the impact with his whole body. That's how big this guy's fist was. And still Luther went flying back. He was that strong. So everyone went on the offensive, Petra with her bullets. But this guy's skin was so strong, it was practically impenetrable. Luther saw this from afar and realized right now Petra was going to become a target. He had to move, and Delilah noticed that Luther was holding back. Why? Because of Petra. But Petra made it clear that Luther was just trying to talk to this guy, because all of them didn't have the choice to become this monstrous. He had to find reason. So Delilah made it seem like Petra was in danger. knowing that it would trigger Luther to become more brutal, and it worked. Luther attacked him with a tree that broke the sound barrier. He wasn't done, landing a flying knee to his face. He kept attacking with elbows, fists, but this guy just punched Luther to the sky. Luther was quick though, grabbing onto one of the ropes in the trap and coming back down like a bullet, drawing blood for the first time. But this guy was all muscle. He just grabbed Luther like a toy. Knowing at this moment Luther might die, Petra tried to shoot. Delilah tried to hypnotize while Luther attacked from the outside with kicks, punches. But this guy was really not that impressed, tossing Luther to the ground like a pebble, shattering some bones on impact. Luther knew it wasn't over. He was still coming because he punched Luther into the ground with one hand and tossed him over the shoulder while taking Petra's gun and bending it like a twig. This fight needs to end as quick as possible. Delilah tried to hypnotize him, but he just grabbed her face. He was about to squash her face, but suddenly he felt discomfort in his chest. He was seeing his own heart. Luther had apparently pulled out his heart from his back. We see him bleeding gallons of blood like a freaking fire hose. Adrenaline flowing through Luther, still holding on to this monster's heart. He thought the fight was over, but nah. He just grabbed Luther and was choking him out because if he was dying, he was taking Luther with him, still bleeding gallons. He whispered something before he slowly loosened his grip and dropped to the floor. We learned that this guy was a warrior through and through. He wanted a warrior's death, and what he whispered in Russian was the location of Cain. They had to go to Hong Kong. You lot are about to meet one of my favorite characters in the whole Luther Strode franchise. He's a freaking slave that is a cowboy. Or should I say he was a slave that is currently a cowboy with the best aim you could possibly imagine. Again, I would like to remind you guys to please subscribe and drop a comment on my channel. It helps me know and it helps me grow. Thank you. We pick up our story in Shanghai, China. The gardener told Luther and his team that the traces of Cain were found in this place. So, the team went to Shanghai. In the dead of night, we see a group of men, a group of dangerous men, a group of men who need to be killed, in my honest opinion, because they take part of the trading of slaves. This type of men the old Luther would have killed on sight. But things are different now. They were going to die, of course, but with the best headshots I've ever seen. I mean, after the first one you guys saw earlier, their brains were completely blown away, and we see the person who took the shot, his guns still in his holster, smoking. We are introduced to the cowboy. Everyone was shocked to see these guys. Even the slaves were shocked. He looked at the people standing before him, all wielding guns, and he took them all out in a split second. 3 were dead, 2 were disarmed, and he wasn't even looking, telling the girls to run away. And they were thankful because they were rescued. And now he had to take care of this too. Both of them pulled out the weapon, but he wasn't even shaking about it at all. He threw 5 bullets in the air, way up in the air, and reloaded his gun without stress. About to take both of them out. Someone saved them. Luther saved them. Which was weird because Luther knew these people were criminals. He explained to the cowboy he doesn't want to fight, but the cowboy wasn't listening. He just let 2 shots off, which ricocheted on the light post and took out both of those guys that decided to run. He was lethal, which is why, from afar, Petra didn't care. She had him in her sights and she let a shot off. Petra's aim was good, but his aim was better because without looking, he took out the bullet. He wasn't done. He took another shot which went directly for Petra's head. But thankfully, Delilah was there to save Petra, pulling her out of the way. Seeing this happen, Luther knew he couldn't play with this guy. He attacked, but the cowboy simply attacked back with his gun, with every shot injuring Luther more and more. Luther tried to explain that he wasn't here to fight, but the gunslinger knew if you were not here to fight, you wouldn't be attacking me like this. Stepping foot on Luther's fist, he flew into the other building. Luther is mad strong, because what the hell? Anyways, he confirmed that Petra was okay and gave chase. The gunslinger was waiting for him because he knew that right now, right here, there was no running from him. He could see Cain in Luthor, and he knew that anyone he could see Cain in was probably working with Cain, e.g., the Binder. And he made it clear that he was not going back in chains for anybody. And this is where we see that my man was actually a slave. But I digress because the fight began. And Luthor was deflecting bullets, but he couldn't deflect everything. I mean, he had the same talents as Luthor, and he was wielding a gun. He was a killing machine. But so was Luthor, because he dug his hand in the ground and picked up some stones. He tossed them with such force they became a shotgun. But the gunslinger was out of there because he knew how to fight, and he knew how to fight well. Luthor gave chase, but this guy was just as fast as Luthor. Maybe not as strong, but more precise. It was like watching two spider people giving chase on each other. It was hard to tell who would catch who. He even tried to make it clear to Luthor that he's not doing anything bad, and he wants no business with Cain. But Luthor didn't want to listen because Luthor wanted to find Cain. So he said, oh well, if you want it like that, I'll give you like that. Jumping to the other building, he turned back, letting two shots off, which pierced Luthor in his legs. Luthor was coming with such momentum, he had to plant his hand firmly into the ground and flip into the down floor just to stop himself from dying. He just sat there, watching Luthor, removing the bullets from his knees, asking him if he was okay. When Luthor confirmed he was okay, the gunslinger smiled because we see that he's genuinely not a bad person. He just doesn't want to fuck with Cain. But Petra wanted to get in this fight. That was her man. She had to support him. Even if Delilah didn't want to, she had to protect Petra. The gunslinger was like Luthor, so he knew they had entered the building, and he told Luthor, your friends are here. But Luthor made it clear, not friends. One is family, and the other... before he could even explain who the other was, the gunslinger knew it was Delilah. He knew her kind. That's honestly why he thinks Luthor is rolling with Cain, because Delilah is an agent of Cain. But while he let the gunslinger talk, Luthor used the bullets he picked out of his own legs to ricochet the gunslinger's own bullets into his own knees. The gunslinger saw this and was impressed. Was like, bruh, you smart as hell. Now, on the floor, defenseless, he tried to pick up his weapon, but Petra was there with her own gun. But he made it clear, do you think I can dodge your bullet from right here? And he proceeds to do so, but when he turned, he saw Luthor, and he stopped, because he couldn't face Luthor right now with injured legs. Petra making a mental note to bring grenade launchers to her next fight. Anyways, now he couldn't move, and he didn't have his guns. It was time to talk. Luthor told him he doesn't want to fight. He just needs Cain's location. And the gunslinger was confused. Bruh, what are you trying to do? Luthor made it clear that he wants to do the exact same thing he's trying to do. Put bad guys away once and for all, like the people in the alley. But he made it clear that some people need to be killed. But Luthor, Mr. Morality, wants to find a better way. And the gardener made it known that he had the location of Cain. Before the conversation could go any further, the she-devil appeared. Delilah the betrayer. Clearly, the gunslinger and Delilah both didn't trust each other, and he made it clear that he doesn't like her, but so did she. She asked him for the location, or she was going to put a bullet in his head, and she was sure he couldn't dodge her shots because clearly she was one of them. The gunslinger simply looked at Luthor and asked him, are you sure about this? Is this what you want? But Luthor made it clear that this is not what he wants, but the best solution is to take out this rampage from the source, which was Cain. So the gunslinger said, okay, come close so I can whisper it to your ears. I do not want Delilah hearing. And Luthor came close. He whispered the answer into Luthor's ear, and Luthor confirmed, saying thank you. But now he had to escape. Putting his hand in his pouch, filled with bullets, he tossed them with such strength they became shotguns themselves, attacking Delilah, but she was quick, stepping out of the way, grabbing his gun from Petra and letting a shot off, disarming Delilah. She was surprised, but she shouldn't be. He was badass. All this while Luther hasn't even landed from the push. When Luther recovered, he charged directly at the gunslinger, and Delilah tried to pick up the gun, but he calmly tossed the gun at Luther and jumped over Delilah, stepping on her face, diving out of the window into the ocean below. He had escaped. Everybody hates Delilah. And now Luther had the location of Cain. So this was about to end. I'm gonna need you guys to get in a very comfortable position, because this is a doozy. Over the past few weeks, we've been diving headfirst into the Luther Strode lore. But in this one, we're going way back to biblical times. We're going to see the origins of freaking Delilah. So please, I'm gonna say it again. Please subscribe and drop a comment. It lets me know you're watching. We continue our story in a desert. We see the three protagonists of this story, Luther, Delilah, and Petra, have come to this exact location because they got the information from the gunslinger that this was where Cain laid. Luther asks Delilah whether she's been here before, but she denies it. But deep down, Petra has had enough because she doesn't trust Delilah, not even in the slightest. But Delilah isn't worried because she has been alive for a very long time. That is why she knows Petra is in over her head. She hasn't seen what Delilah has seen. But this didn't sit well with Petra because she had her shares of horrors. She had a father who constantly beat her. She had her horrors. You don't get to say your troubles are deeper than other people's because you have more. So finally, Petra decided to stand her ground, whipping out her shotgun because she was tired of this game. She was tired of playing as if they were friends when her and Luther knew that Delilah was working for Cain all along. She knew that Delilah used them to take out every single person that stood against Cain, the gardener, the gunslinger. And the whole point of this whole mission was to take out Cain's obstacles. But a good betrayer always knows when her time is up because she made them both dizzy. Using the opportunity to grab Petra's neck, she was about to snap it, but Petra had a trusty grenade. Petra knew the grenade wouldn't kill her, but she knew that Luther would, because Luther was the love of her life, and Luther would never allow her go without killing whoever took her. Luther tried to make it clear that he doesn't want to, but Delilah had the eyes, so she could tell he was planning his next move already, because Delilah has been on Earth for a long time, thousands of years in fact. She was a beautiful child, but her father sold her off to slavery. She was forced to do unthinkable things at a young age. She was forced to suffer, but she was never going to take this lying down because she killed her oppressor in a spectacular way and escaped. She was willing to accept death rather than suffer. And before she could die, she was saved. All her assailants turned into mincemeat in a split second. And the person who saved her stood before her, calling her beautiful. This man was Cain. He trained her, sharpened her, gave her purpose, a means to exact her revenge on her father, on her clan, and she was then used by Cain to suppress anyone who had the ability and wouldn't submit. There was Samson. There was Hercules. She was the one that killed Hercules' family. She was a demon. There was Joan the Ark. She was burnt at the stake as a witch. But some families fell in line, like some Japanese families, and the others were changed to binders. But right now, standing before her was Petra. Petra made it clear that of course your life has been horrible, but that doesn't give you a right to cause this much pain. The world would be better if you were dead. But Delilah simply looked at Luther and asked him, does he believe it too? But Luther made it clear that no, he doesn't. Because if he's being honest, he doesn't like to kill. And he has made up his mind to never kill again if he doesn't have to. Everyone can change. There is good in everyone. Even you, Delilah. Delilah decided to throw up the grenade. Luther had to think fast, so he dived, tossing Petra out of the way and grabbing a hold of the grenade. tossing it with all of his strength into the sky. It exploded, and everyone was safe. But Delilah was gone. They were stuck in the desert together. But thankfully, the place they needed to go was close. So Luther became a horse. Finding the truck that Delilah took, Petra confirmed all their weapons were still intact. So Luther opened the door, and what stood before him were three, or rather four of his kind: an Aztec warrior, an African, a samurai, and Delilah herself. This was going to be a tough battle, but Luther was with the smoke. Telling his girl to get ready, he closed the door behind him and got ready for combat, telling them it doesn't have to be this way. But these people didn't care. They were from different eras. They didn't even know what a gun was. They just loved to fight. So the fight began. Luther was used to fighting two people. He has done that a number of times, but this were three, and they were master class. But he stood his ground, dodging and attacking, but they were not impressed in the slightest, so he had to get lethal. Petra tried to ram the door, but he wouldn't even budge. Back in the cave though, Luther was fighting for his life, grabbing the spear of the African warrior and launching it directly at his enemies. Delilah asked the samurai why he wasn't fighting, but he made it clear that he's going to wait. But at this moment, the spear was coming directly for her head. But the samurai was strong, catching it from the air. And when he noticed that Luther was in the air himself, he launched it back, knowing Luther wouldn't be able to dodge while he was in the air. The Aztec warrior, seeing this take place, grabbed a hold of the spear and tossed Luther to the side, returning the spear back to the African, making it clear that the spear is a useless tool, that he should only use his hand. But as we have seen over the years, the people that are like Luther that use weapons are deadly. We've seen the gunslinger, now the African, and we're going to see the samurai as well. The African warrior didn't hold his tongue, letting him know he was a fool for not using a weapon. And Luther told them, middle of the fight, that he doesn't want to fight. They have a better way. The Aztec warrior and the African laughed because they never saw any of a better way. They were bred to fight. But Luther wasn't talking to them. He was talking to Delilah, ripping off his shirt. Even if he knew he was going to lose this fight, he still had to fight because that was just his nature. He was stabbed and smacked down as hard as possible, but he still wouldn't give up, telling Delilah things could be different. She thought about her past, thought about the life she knew, and she realized this was the wrong choice. This was not who she was meant to be. Out of nowhere, Petra started shouting Luther's name, but caught the attention of the Aztec warrior who wanted flesh. He attacked, running as fast as he could, and Luther tried to stop him, but the African pinned him to the ground. The Aztec warrior reached the door. Delilah stopped him because now she knows her side. She chose her side, trying to use her persuasion to let him calm down. She was blasted through that door so fast. It was so funny. He was ready and he wanted flesh. But Petra was ready as well, wielding a Gatling gun. She smiled because she was done running. She let it rip, tearing this Aztec warrior into mincemeat. His corpse was spectacularly splattered everywhere. Everyone inside the cave saw this happen. Luther saw this happen, and he was proud of the girl he loves. But the warriors were confused because they have never seen this weapon before. Luther, using their confusion, he managed to escape. But the warrior, the samurai, attacked. He was so fast, like the Flash, wielding two sharp blades. He was about to end Luther's life. Using the eye of foresight, they saw that Luther had given up. He wasn't moving. So they decided to end his life, grabbing a hold of Luther's neck, ready to split it. But Luther doesn't give up easy, jumping forward, causing the samurai to split the African in half. Using the corpse of the African, he tossed it at the samurai, disarming him. The battle was over. The battle was won. Luther came out on top, but he wasn't going to kill the samurai, letting him know that he's a man of honor and he wants to end this the right way. He wants to kill Cain and end this suffering. Giving the samurai back his sword, the samurai joined them, but he was foolish because he decided to charge for Cain himself, which was the wrong move. Luther tried to stop him, but there was no stopping him. He was already in Cain's chamber. Cain saw the attack coming and smiled like he wanted this to happen. The samurai unleashed a flurry of attacks, but all that was for nothing, because with one swift motion, all the chains and binds were broken, and the samurai's head went flying. Cain could have broken out any time he wanted. He chose to be here, and Luther saw this and knew he was in trouble, because Cain, father of murder, the original killer, was free. Finally, we are at the series finale for the Luther Strode comic series. It's been a long ride. It's been a long, bloody ride, but we're finally here, and we're going to see one of the most gruesome battles take place between Luther himself and the father of murder and death, Cain. And please don't forget to like and subscribe to my YouTube channel so I will drop more. And stay tuned for the ending because there is a surprise I put in there just for you guys to show you I love you. Now, let's get into it. Okay, so we pick up our story with where we left off in the last video. Cain is free, and he could have been free from any point in time. He stayed in this cave, in those chains, without food or water, because he wanted to. Even Luther, who has fought till this point without a weapon, decided to pick up a katana. Even freaking Delilah, super confident narcissist, decided, bro, we have to leave this place. Let's fight in an open space. Then Cain spoke, because his point was he wanted to be able to transcend human limitations. He chose to stay in this place, to become a god, to be worshipped by his followers, to be everything they know they could be. And now he was. Cain knew what he was. Others were limited by their humanity, but he was straight up 100% a killer. He was death, reincarnated into the human flesh. And death could not be bound. Luther asked him a question. You know why I'm here? And Cain knew. You're here to talk to me. Give me the whole anybody can be saved speech, but that would not work on me. A lot of people have tried. This is where we see a flashback to him and his brother, because this is Cain. Obviously, there was Abel tossing the head of Musashi. Luther said no. Cain was surprised. No? But Luther explained, I am not stupid. You are the origin of death. You are the first killer. You have had millennia to change, and you have until now. There is no redeeming you. I don't want to kill you, but I have to. And him and Delilah attacked. Delilah throwing the spearhead and Luther gripping his katana. Cain just smiled and tossed up the skull of Musashi. Luther was forced to split his head in half, rest in pieces. He then proceeds to catch the spearhead and toss it back, knowing full well Luther will split it in half. But who stood behind Luther? That's right, Delilah. And who stood behind Delilah? That's right, Petra. With one throw, Cain had taken down Luther's backup and the love of his life. Cain was clearly above masterclass. He then said, kneel, and you will be forgiven. But Luther wasn't going to kneel, stabbing the katana directly into Cain's chest. But that was all for nothing, because Luther can catch bullets in his muscles. Did he think Cain, the father of murder, couldn't do the same with the katana? Because steel is strong, but the body is stronger. Petra, watching her man get his ass beat, decided to wield the Gatling gun, but Delilah told her no. This is Cain. You will just be putting Luther at risk. So she was forced to stand down, and Luther was still fighting Cain. Cain then proceeds to pull the katana from his guts and tossed it and Luther above his head, licking his own blood and saying, wow, that tastes fantastic. Telling Luther to try harder, bro. You're making me bored. And Luther proceeds to try harder, bringing the katana down with his full force. But Cain just put his hand up and broke it, stepping forward and crushing Luther's face under his metal boots. He stretched his hand and grabbed all the shards of the katana and tossed it at Petra and Delilah. But thankfully, Delilah was there to save Petra's life. Luther watched this happen, and as usual, he was enraged because no one hurts his baby girl. Pushing Cain back, Cain smiled, because this is what I want to see. Come at me, Luther. Petra smiled, like my man is going to fuck you up, but Delilah knew the truth. This was Cain. Luther's hand was inside Cain's body, but Cain just grabbed it. Using his free hand, he hit Luther's pressure point in a split second, slamming him like a bullet into the ground. Luther couldn't move. Cain had him dead to right. Cain got down next to Luther and explained that this is how we should have been from the start. Luther, clearly still in pain, said, "Go to hell." But Cain just laughed because he knew that we are already in hell. But Delilah wasn't just going to watch. She had to save Luther. But Cain didn't even turn around. He just caught her, looking at her, calling her betrayer, because she was his agent. But Luther seemed to have infected her with his moral compass. She tried to use her abilities on Cain, but Cain literally Uno reversed it, using his own, and he could do it way better. He almost destroyed her brain, but he knew Delilah. He knew the way she fought. He knew that she was just a distraction for the Gatling gun that this chick was pointing directly at them. So, like the superhuman that he is, he just pulled Delilah to the side, aimed for his target, and chucked her like a missile. She flew crashing into Petra, destabilizing both of them. Luther had to watch as the love of his life was about to be killed by Cain himself, and there was nothing he could do about it. Petra wasn't going to lay down and die, so she pulled out a gun, but Cain just snatched it, destroying it in one fell swoop, saying he hates technology. Now he would rather use his hands. Still holding on to Petra's neck, he used his free hands to dig his fingers slowly into Petra's chest. With every second, he went deeper and deeper. Delilah couldn't watch this happen. She decided to crawl and even munch on Cain's leg, but that would never stop him. He wasn't a regular person. He just raised his leg and crushed her face into the ground. Petra pulled out a knife and Cain stopped it, but this was a mechanical knife, so she shot it into Cain's face. And after that, Cain made up his mind to tear her to pieces, but Luther finally woke up because nobody hurts his girl. Even Cain was surprised by this, attacking Luther, saying, "You cannot beat me." And Luther knew this because he said the same thing, "I know I can't beat you." Using all of his strength to break free from Cain's grasp, he was in the air, landing safely and gracefully, saying, "I know I can't beat you. We all know we can't beat you. You, the mightiest of all of us," attacking Cain over and over again. Cain was about to split him in half, but Luther kept punching. "You're right." With every frame, a flurry of punches came through. Delilah called out to Cain. Using all of her strength, she used her ability to distract him, and Luther gave Petra the command, and she unleashed a hailstorm of bullets and tears because she knew Luther could die from this too. But Cain was still unharmed. This shouldn't even be possible, but he was here, and he was crushing Luther. So Luther decided, alright, let's just fight, punching Cain in the guts, pulling out all of his guts. His guts were on the freaking floor, and Luther was using it to yo-yo. Cain kept landing continuous headbutts and smiling with every hit, because this was what he wanted, a glorious death. Luther was going in from punches to elbows. Then he decided, fuck this. Grabbing a big-ass rock, he tossed it directly at Cain's head. Cain's head went splat, his brains popping out. The battle was over. Luther was triumphant, currently the strongest person on planet Earth. I mean, if we're not counting the cowboy. Petra ran to her man to be there with him, and he was crying because this was a big moment. But she was there with him, embracing her and kissing her. We also see Delilah shedding a tear because this was low-key her adoptive father. This man raised her, trained her, and used her as a weapon for so long, but now she was free. And they all wanted to go home, but Luther said no, because he heard from the librarian that these books, the Hercules Method, was all over the globe, thousands of copies. So obviously there will be some people that could use these abilities, and they will be there to stop them and show them that there is a better way, always. Thank you guys for rocking with me till the end, and I will be dropping a poll today, and I would honestly be so happy if you guys could vote in it so we could all decide collectively what story you would want to hear from me next. I got you.